Perfect. So welcome everyone and thank you for joining. Thank you for registering, whether you're joining live or joining at a later stage. It's really great to have you here. So as you may know, today we are joining to go through the steps that you can take to run a successful Bodyswaps pilot. And there might be a variety of reasons that you've joined, whether that is because you're a seasoned piloter and you want to learn the best practices from others, or if you're just taking your very first steps into this kind of program and you want to learn from others who have already taken those steps ahead of you. So this call is to provide you with practical information from masses of experiences with trials, pilots from our community, and we're very lucky to have two guests with us today to share their experiences of real-life pilots as well. So to get started, before we dive into the programme of the day and the structure of this call, would be great to know who's here with us viewing, where you're from, and your pilot experience. So what I'm going to do is share my screen and share a way that you can get involved with this call, and that will then help us direct the information that we share in a way that is most relevant and as helpful as possible for everyone here. So I've just shared a link and I'm just going to share my screen now so that you can see what that looks like for you. So if you follow that link or scan this QR code and enter this number, then that will take you to our Menti page, and this will essentially then allow you to say where you're joining us from today. So I am joining from Southwest London, near Wimbledon, which is a very busy area at the moment if you're a big fan of tennis. And then I'll also introduce Sofie and Zoe in full later, but Sofie and Zoe, feel free to say where you're joining from as well. And then I'm just sharing the number that you can enter. There we go, and we've got a comment as well. So you're more than welcome to comment on the chat, or you can post where you're from in the group. So I will now move on to see where people are actually joining from. So if there's anyone joining live and has been able to access this link, then let me know. Perfect. London, Stockholm, Texas, Leeds. Wow, we've got a really global audience. This is lovely to see. Shoreditch, which is where our office is based as well. Petrock College in Devon, lovely. Fantastic. Great to be connected with you all around the world. And as this grows, I'll leave it an extra session, an extra few minutes just to see this all go. And so, Sofie, I believe you're joining from Belgium, is that correct?
That's true, yes.
Fantastic. And Zoe, are you in Burton-on-Trent or are you further afield?
I'm in Burton-on-Trent today, yes.
Lovely. Perfect. Well, it's lovely to have everyone here. There's a mix of UK, rest of world, more than I actually anticipated there would be. So great to be connected with you all. And whoever's joining this after, great to have you there as well. So the next thing I'd like to move on to kind of kickstart this call is how confident you feel about running a pilot. Now, this could be related to Bodyswaps. This could just be your experience generally, but kind of where do you fit on that scale? So 1 is totally new to this world of piloting, and 5 is a pilot pro. As we can see, there's a mix already, fairly even actually, with one pilot pro, some more newbies joining. And what we'll do today is give you information that can hopefully support all different levels. So whether, again, this is you just recapping and refreshing the perspectives and the steps that you can take, or if this is something that is your first ever endeavour and you can go through this from there. So then what we will also do at the end of this call is revisit this and look again then at how you feel, how confident you feel at the end of this webinar. Now, those of you who are quite familiar with Bodyswaps, you'll actually see that this is something that you have to complete when you take a module, so assessing the confidence levels. And so you'll see this replicated now here and at the end of this pilot discussion. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, ending on the majority being totally new. And the next slide is about the biggest challenges you face or have faced or anticipate facing when running a pilot. So this could be from maybe fears or concerns you have ahead of running your own, or from past experiences. So buy-in, participants, buy-in again, and something that we do often here at Bodyswaps and are here to support with. The anxiety of participants, very interesting. Engagement, tech issues, headsets, software, Wi-Fi. And so these are our common challenges, and I think we'll touch on these again from our attendees, our guest speakers' experiences today. But I also want to highlight that at the end of this call, we'll be sharing a guide with you to support your own pilots. It's a 0 to hero guide, all of the different options that you might want to take, and flexible to your particular model or context or institution, kind of covering all of these key stages that you've mentioned there. So I'm going to move away from this word cloud, although we probably will jump back into this at the end of the call. You'll see there is another question. That's for us to look at the end of the call. But this is a great starting point and allows us to make sure that we address kind of these key points in the body of the call. So as mentioned, we have the main structure looking at pilot programs and how you can run those. We then have an exclusive preview from our CEO and co-founder, Chris Mallett, later at the end of the call, looking at our product roadmap. And we'll be fitting in time to answer your questions, maybe that they'll be answered through the course of the call, or if not, we have a dedicated 10 minutes just after we've gone through this main section. So before I move any further, I'll introduce our two special guests. And so first up, we've got Sofie from Hogent. So Sofie is an educationalist at Hogent, where she actively engages in policymaking and implementation. She has expertise in workplace-based learning and soft skills, and is a dedicated advocate for bridging the gap between education and industry. So wonderful to have you here, Sofie. And then also we have Zoe. So Zoe is an experienced lecturer, tutor and course leader with a passion for integrating digital technology into education. And she's currently serving as the learning technologist at Burton and South Derbyshire College. So constantly seeking the next generation of learners and their potential impact on the educational landscape. She draws interest from their potential, and it's great to have you here and look forward to your perspectives today. So I'll let you have a quick second to say hello.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
And then we'll move on to the kind of the reason that you're all here today. So how we're going to break this call down is into 3 key stages. So first of all, we'll be planning. That looks at everything leading up to those first pilot sessions that you run. So the who, the why, and the what. And then we'll be looking at delivery, and delivery covers the materials that you've created, the training, the actual sessions themselves, the learnings, and the ways that they then impact subsequent sessions that you run. And then the reporting stage, and that looks at the challenges, the wins, and the ways that you might then incorporate this in future, and basically how you reflect on your entire program and then report that back to others. And at each stage, we'll go through the learnings from our community, and then we'll have the practical experiences from both Zoe and Sofie on their own pilot programs. So I will start off with planning. Now, when we start with planning, this is kind of best to start with looking at the why, and that kind of looks at why are you doing this pilot program. Now that looks at much larger objectives and where this fits into your institution, but also kind of focused in on very practical steps. So actually what success looks like for you when you're running this program. For some, that could be the actual number of users you've got through the program, exposing them to this kind of training and gathering their feedback through discussion or qualitative feedback forms. Or it could actually be looking at the impact that this training has had on their confidence levels, which is something that you can address in Bodyswaps Go, as well as understanding how they feel about this format of training. So the impact, self-awareness and understanding of their skills through the medium of Bodyswaps. Now, when you look at why on the much larger scale and the smaller scale, this then allows you to reflect back at the end of the period, and is really important with that reporting phase of the connection of the two, see how you then measured against each of your original goals. So then once you've decided the why, you'll then move on to the who, And that's not only who your testers are, but who you're getting involved from the management side and the facilitation of sessions. So when we look at Bodyswaps champions, is what we call them, that's from maybe a technical side where you have someone that can help with the troubleshooting, the technical aspects, the hardware, the equipment, the space and setup, but also from the pedagogical side. So how this actually fits into your curriculum, the ways that your learners learn, and other ways that you might supplement this particular model. And then once you've got your champions decided on and the way that you're then going to invite your learners, you'll be looking at who you want your learners to be. So whether this is going to be focused on a particular skill set. So for example, our healthcare modules, where you have kind of key aims and objectives of the skills that they then will take into the workplace. Or you might want to involve your digital champions who can provide a really high view technical perspective. They can inform you on how this engages with other technologies that they've used or are aware of, and kind of can bring that perspective as well. Or you can do a mix of the two, or you can kind of encounter a range of different programs across your entire pilot. And then once you've decided on the why and the who, you look at the what. So that's exactly how you're going to deliver this program. So will you have group workshops? Will you have bookable sessions where people can come in and individually embrace this training in their own space, at their own pace, with the full privacy and security of being on their own in this training, which is probably the optimal experience when you're especially going through Bodyswaps training. And then finally, the other option is to book out the headsets or the devices that you're using. And talking about devices, that's quite a key point to cover as well. Obviously, virtual reality is an incredibly immersive experience, and one that I imagine many of you on this call will be exploring or have explored. But we're also available on PC and mobile, and so ways that you can incorporate this and blend your training with other models that you use that you might want to include in the pilot program to assess the results and the impact of each device type and the way that you've delivered it. So that's kind of very much a whistle-stop tour of key areas to think about when the planning stage is. And what we're going to do now is contextualize this by both of our speakers kind of talking through their experience with the planning stage. So we'll start off with Sofie.
Yes, thank you. Lovely. Well, I have to say that our pilot was a real tryout. So I will give a bit of background. The goal of my job is to bring in innovations into day curricula and give solutions to certain gaps. And the reason why I became involved as an educational advisor in the project where I'm going to speak about today is that we wanted to work around soft skills. I will talk about a pilot that went on within the Simulation Station project. It's the name of our project that was government funded for 1 year. The project was linked to the study program Supply Chain Management of Ghent and Artevelde. Those are both universities of applied sciences, and it's within a bachelor's degree of 3 years. The purpose of the project is to close the gap between education and industry. And the specific aims of the project were building a physical lab and building a website that leads educators to good simulation games. And that's where Bodyswaps came in. The certain skills that Simulation Station should cover were derived from interviews with field partners, and they really requested a big focus on soft skills. They also mentioned it could be useful for the development of their own personnel. So they have like the both sides, both advantages. The search for programs led us to Bodyswaps, and at first we were stimulated by an article of Thomas More that is also University of Applied Science in Belgium, and it was about Bodyswaps. So it's really important to have other examples that are inspiring. And eventually we were convinced after trying a demo, so it's really important to do that too, and having contact with the Bodyswaps teams who are very helpful and leading you to the right module. If I'm moving on now to talking about the testing group, use space and equipment, I should say that the pilot group we used were students within the bachelor degree of supply chain management. And it involved a group of only 30 students, national, international students, who had 2 different teachers participating in the project. So they had tryouts of 2 modules. The first teacher gave the course International Marketing, and she chose the module Public Speaking and Presentation. She wanted to use the module as a medium, so the goal was to gain tips and practice to present as an assessment at the end of the course. The students went through the module alone at their own pace, and they had also the VR practice to see themselves in action. For that course, for that pilot, we used 3 locations in all, like 1 traditional class and 2 VR classes. About equipment, generally speaking, we used 3 classes at the same time in a rotation. And there were 4 VR glasses. That's not a lot. It's really a small amount. And the staff who was involved was 1 teacher, a technical support, and 1 pedagogical support. That was me at that time. The other teacher gave the course cross-cultural communication, and she chose a different module, management and leadership, with the same students. So the students could compare. That was really interesting to see. The module was used in as a direct content, so it applied to the aims of the course. There was 1/2 an hour individual use, and afterwards there was a class discussion, what was really important for the teacher to do, so they could gain some information from the students. There was only 1 location, namely the language lab. So generally we used for that pilot 1 class, 30 laptops, 30 high quality headphones, and just a teacher. So that was like a quick planning of the first pilots we did. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sofie. And then now over to Zoe to hear more about Burton and South Derbyshire.
Thank you. So our journey is quite different, actually. So we've secured some Towns funding, which meant that we've kind of spent some money on VR, AR, AI simulation throughout the whole college. So we put together a working group that was heavily focused around content that we wanted to go onto the VR headsets. And at that time, we didn't know Bodyswaps existed. We kind of come up with like a wish list as to what we would like in terms of content that would help align with our BSDC skills promise. And I'll just give you a bit of a background what our skills promise is. These are our transferable skills. So not only are the learners, studying for their qualification, we want to make them all-round learners. And as part of that, our skills promise makes them kind of job ready, problem solvers, team players, good communicators, professional, entrepreneurial. So all these kind of wider transferable skills, and kind of we created this wish list. And as those VR working groups kind of went along, all of a sudden we came across Bodyswaps, which actually ticked a lot of the boxes. So as part of that process, we made contact with Bodyswaps, and we looked at doing that pilot scheme with a small number of learners, just to see whether it ticked the boxes with regards to our own skills promise. Because what we didn't want to do is have content sat on VR headsets that wouldn't get used by staff and teachers and students, and not plan it into their curriculum. What we wanted was something on the VR headsets that wasn't subject specific, so it was there for all areas, all departments, all subjects, and they could all access it and find it beneficial and useful. So as part of that pilot scheme, we wanted to really dig deep into kind of the employability side of things. We're really keen on one of our 3 focuses is making our learners job ready. So as part of that, obviously, is building the confidence with interview skills and things like that. And that's something that our staff don't struggle with it, but to integrate it into our curriculum is quite hard, and building that confidence. And the more research we did around Bodyswaps, we found that Bodyswaps would be the perfect fit for that. But obviously, to find out more, we wanted to pilot that with a certain group of learners. So we looked at our business and accounting level 3 learners, because one of their modules is about recruitment and selection, and they have to talk about an interview process and preparing for interview, and going through that process. So it made sense really to do that with our learners. And at the time of the pilot, it came in our spring term, so our learners are preparing for work experience. So really, actually, it fit really nicely with the timing as well. So I don't know if that was coincidental with the learners that we chose to use. And with kind of the future projects, because our VR kind of centre, if you like, isn't up and running actually until September, and we've made it part of our learning resource centre. So that's where we were going to run the pilots, one to see if it worked in the space, just to confirm where we were going to, you know, create that centre for our VR headsets. So we had it on 5 headsets, so we did small numbers at a time in kind of intermittent kind of hour sessions to go through kind of that interview process. Like I said, we did it in our learning resource centre, and who facilitated that was our learning resource manager at the time. So she had access to kind of the Bodyswaps Go side of things, which is the administrative side, and did that kind of on a one-to-one basis. And I say one-to-one, one with the 5. That's quite a small group for us as a college, and we found the our LIC space is quite a quiet space. It's obviously our library, so we kind of worked well with our learners to really immerse themselves into that kind of the Bodyswaps experience, because you do need a quiet space to actually get involved. We do have the Oculus Quest 2s. That's what the Bodyswaps package was put onto. And yeah, really, it was to reaffirm really what our kind of wish list was. We found, a software that kind of ticks that wish list, and it was just to see what the students' feedback really, to reaffirm what we wanted. And Bodyswaps and the interview process seemed the right pilot to do at the time, and aligned with everything that we'd kind of planned in readiness for the VR centre in our next academic year. So yeah, that was our pilot planning, if you like.
Fantastic. Thank you, Zoe. And so that is such an important phase where you're kind of looking at what plans you have ready to deliver that first session. But the first sessions themselves are such an important phase to actually understand what worked well from your planning, what needs to be changed the next time. And the challenges that you face are just as important as the wins, because then you can go on and deliver those future sessions incorporating those learnings, which is a really lovely segue onto the next section, which is looking at that delivery. So the delivery encompasses kind of every different aspect to delivering those sessions, the physical space that you've set up, or the way that you've engaged with learners to book out those headsets. Both of our examples here are using group sessions. And so when you are using group sessions, if you're not in the lovely private space like the Learning Resource Centre, then having equipment like headphones, which I can see some comments on in the chat as well. But kind of taking a step back and looking at actually the lead up to getting students into those sessions for the delivery, we'd also kind of encompass communication around this pilot and the training materials that you disperse and create as part of the delivery phase. Now, we've put together a bank of resources at Bodyswaps for both the communication about your pilot program, how people can get involved, and the training materials as well. This will then help you inform how you introduce the sessions, the running of those sessions, and then you can build on them as time goes on as well. So in those first few sessions, you can then document those learnings, and I'm really looking forward to Sofie and Zoe telling you about the learnings from their sessions as well, and how that went on to shape subsequent sessions. But I do also want to highlight again, the guide that we'll be sharing has a lot of different information on the ways that you can run these different sessions, the equipment, the considerations, how to engage learners, and buy-in being one of those key elements, both on the faculty level or on your kind of staff level, as well as the individual learners. So because I'm conscious of time and it's super valuable to get the insights from both Sofie and Zoe, I'm going to hand over now, reverse order, and go straight for Zoe, and then we'll switch back to Sofie after, and then we'll go through this delivery phase. So Zoe, back to you straight away.
Thank you. So like I said before, the delivery aspect of it was we did have our learning resource manager and the tutor deliver those sessions, and there was 5 students at a time, and we were really keen to get their verbal feedback. So initially, when we set this up, we created a health and safety consent form. That was really important for our learners, because for some of them, especially within this area of business and accounting, they probably wouldn't have immersed themselves into VR headsets before. So, and this is the route that we're going the new academic year. So we created a health and safety consent form for our learners to fill in and make sure that they were happy with kind of entering into a VR headset. And on reflection, we have invested in screens because we know that the headsets aren't for every learner. So we're very interested for every learner to be able to access this. So both VR headsets immerse themselves that way, but also go through the Bodyswaps content on the actual computer screens as well. So it's good that you can access it both ways. It doesn't have to just be the VR headset. But luckily, the learners that we did run it with were really absolutely fine with the headsets and did throw themselves straight in. Some of the feedback from the delivery, and which we didn't do but have done since, was invest in the headsets. They felt because they could hear some of the other learners kind of answering, especially because it was an interview simulation, so they were, answering questions verbally. It wasn't just, participating, through the controllers and so on. I think it made them more self-conscious that they could hear the other learners. So it was really important then for us to take that feedback on board, and moving forward we are investing in headsets so that they can fully immerse, focus on what's happening in the Bodyswaps content, and feel confident in answering. And so so for us, really the smaller groups, that was really important, so that we could fully immerse them and get them into that safe space. So that's really important as well, making sure that they feel safe whilst they're in the headsets and they can fully focus on what's being asked of them and the delivery of that. And like I said, our LRC, it is our library, so that seemed like the perfect space to put it in. But as part of the delivery method, what we wanted to do was not only obviously link it to their business and accounting module. We do a package called it's called the B package in our college, and we have B tutorial, we have B independent, and we have B social. And as part of kind of our B independent and our B tutorials, they're very much kind of those transferable skills, the wider topics, for example, study skills, employability, safeguarding, British values, all the things that not only kind of the employability and the interview programs that Bodyswaps offer, but all their other programs, kind of like the public speaking, the diversity and equity, all of those things really fit well into our B package, which is our B tutorial and B independent. And so the B independent is modules that learners do online, and what we're trying to get learners to do is connect the dots, so make those links between the course and the qualification that they're doing, and then those wider transferable skills. And Bodyswaps as a whole really fits nicely into that. So not only is it going to help them with their qualification and make them job ready and employable, but it's also going to give them those other skill sets. So as part of the delivery method, we wanted to ask them and get them involved in how we could then plan this into our B package, into the tutorials, and then obviously leading on from that since then, and I'll talk about that in the next session more, is how we've then gone on to deliver the training to staff to make them confident with how they can implement it and plan it into their curriculum next year, not only in tutorials but their actual qualifications as well. So hopefully, yes, that's answered that for you.
Fantastic. Yeah, brilliant to hear that, Zoe. And over to you, Sofie.
Yes, our view of the tryout. I would like to tell everybody that preparation is key. It's about making meaningful selection. It's about thinking about educational goals and making an educational design that fits the purpose. That includes all technical questions, what device, where, which time. You have to think about everything. Communication is also important. I mean, in-depth consultation is needed with the involved teachers, IT service, learning network service, educational development service, staff. Bodyswaps, a lot of people were involved, but enthusiastic, so no problem there. Other things we arranged before the pilot is that we got a good guidance from Bodyswaps to increase the chances of success. This included elaborated material. And for a first tryout with VR, available technical support is a must. So you have a person next to you to help when something's stuck or something. About the pilots, I will highlight the use of the module and the feedback separately, because we had like 2 small pilots within the tryout. The first teacher took like the module public speaking and presentation. She used the laptop, headphones, and VR. And the students were widely enthusiastic. I was there, I've seen it, so it's true. They were happy they could follow their own pace. Students were speaking with speaking skills, have also learned about things they were not aware of, so everybody can learn still. What went like the cons were that not all students do the required preparation in advance. So you can mail in advance, please download, please do this. They don't, so you have to include that. There were technical delays, outdated laptops, dead batteries, really important to know. We had a large classroom with too few privacy options, so that is also something I want to give. You have to even make more reservations of have a really fit classroom like the other one. The language lab was much more fit for that. And the large number of students had too few glasses. So some students did not get their turn. And guess who? The introverts. They dodged the ball. So the challenges, I would say, is to make all reservations, get everybody together and aligned. And in the future, we want to continue with Bodyswaps to have like a year pilot now. And we have bought 4 more VR glasses. So yeah, we are making the park bigger. The second teacher, that was the teacher who chose the module management and leadership. She just used a laptop and headphones and cubicles in the language lab. Students were positive that they could follow at their own pace. They were fascinated by the content. They thought the content was new. And you have to know that those students were third-year students, so they were already experienced. So that's actually a compliment. The content was suitable to guard the aims of the intercultural communication, so I'm referring to the course. It was used as a very intuitive, and students would get away with it really quickly. The level was okay. Some students said we have some prior knowledge, and they went through it a bit faster, so sometimes you have to have a plan B. The feedback is integrated in the program. It's really nice, but the VR application is more complete. So a class discussion is really needed to make to tick all the boxes of a good course. The challenge. It's a challenge to create sufficient seclusion so students can concentrate on themselves. And the feedback forms they answered, they could hear other students. They did not like that every time. And I think in the future, we would explore in which year the content would be more fit. And we were thinking about the starters, like the first years, to have like a better learning curve there. Yeah, that was my story.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sofie. And I think it's a really interesting point you made there on learners who are going to be the ones maybe putting their hands up straight away, getting involved, whereas those who there isn't a device for everyone and they're the ones going next, who might also really maybe even more so benefit from access to these training modules. And so kind of coordinating the space or the time or the equipment to allow for everyone to have that chance, or if they are in a group setting, to give them that optimal environment and great learnings to be able to take away then into future sessions and a longer pilot period that sounds like you're now heading into. So moving swiftly on to the reporting stage. So we'll go back to you now, Zoe, and look at actually how you then reflected back on the learnings, what the success looked like for you, and how that then led the way for any future steps.
Sure. So we then obviously got the groups together as a student focus group and to get kind of that verbal feedback, because it's really important for learners to express themselves, and our learners certainly are very expressive when it comes to giving feedback. So they were very excited, very passionate about what was happening. They liked the idea of the feedback that they got, and that it would help them kind of set themselves targets and that they could actually go straight back in and have another go. So that kind of sense of failing, but it's okay to fail and have another go. That was really important for our learners, that they didn't feel embarrassed at the fact that there was, steps to take in order to improve, because, that's real life and we are preparing them for the real world. And I feel like from the feedback that we've got, Bodyswaps is very good at doing that. So they really liked kind of that instant feedback as well. They didn't have to wait. So sometimes, obviously, with their qualification and so on, they have to wait for their feedback from their staff member after, you know, work has been marked. So I think the fact that it was instant was really good for them. And then obviously they could go away and work on that skill set and keep coming back. So they were very keen to come back. And I think they were disappointed that it was only a pilot and that we needed to get through a number of learners. But we did say that this is something that we are definitely investing in. And when they return in September, we'll have the full package and that they can go through all of it. And obviously we can connect the dots with their qualification. So it was positive. There were some learners that would be more interested in using it on a PC screen and feel like they could take their time over having that. I think because for some of them it was their first time in a VR headset, and it was quite a strange thing for them. However, others liked the fact that they were fully immersed, and they actually felt that they were in the environment that it was in at the time. So as part of that, then from the learners' feedback, we then started to plan our staff development, because we knew that we were going to invest in this, and we have invested in the full package and licenses for mainly our FE learners, because that's who we are trialing with. That's who we do our B package with. So as part of that, we wanted to get staff on board. So I know everybody said from the start it is the buy-in, and I think the learners will automatically be enthusiastic about learning this, because we're from an image-based, our students, that's how they learn. They're from this technological era, whereas our staff have a range of digital knowledge. So it was really important for us to get our staff buy-in, and that's why we wanted to incorporate it as part of our digitally themed staff development. And you guys came in and delivered that face-to-face training, which was really, really important for our staff, because you're the experts and they're the ones that are going to have questions about it and about how it's going to develop further, and with future developments of Bodyswaps and the packages that are going to be available. So I think for us, really having that staff buy-in now and how they can start implementing it and planning it as part of their delivery methods, with both qualification and our B package. My role as obviously the learning technologist and working with our quality team is to now help them plan and implement it from a quality point of view, help them work on the session plans, incorporating it into their schemes of work for them to see the value of it. I don't want it to just be a good old jolly up to the LRC just to put some headsets on. We really want to see the benefits of using Bodyswaps and how it will actually help the learners align with our skills promise, which is what we promise our learners when they enroll with us. So yeah, really, it's for my role then is to obviously connect the dots. We're still going to have our learning resource managers be kind of the admin side of things. So they're going to be the ones that kind of book out classes within the VR centre. We've taken on board from the feedback from staff development that still smaller groups is working well, having those isolated areas. And we've put aside some headsets then that are bookable to go into the actual classrooms. So where students feel safer in their own environments, we're well aware of that as well. For them to come into the LRC, it's a strange environment for some of our learners. So also having that option that they can take them into the classroom. And yeah, so we're just going to continue really pushing and driving the Bodyswaps program into our B platform, and connecting those dots with qualification and our skills promise and those transferable skills.
Perfect. And I think that's a really nice mention of the way that you've introduced this to your faculty as well. Being part of the professional development day is a way that we've seen it work really well, because it's scheduled time for them to learn about tools and to try it out and to get involved. And that seems to have a really good connection with their own understanding of how everything works, but a real chance to focus their energy on it and then lead that into the planning for how that kind of impacts their students and their classes in future. So it was a pleasure to be part of that day, but also kind of really key to mention for other people exploring ways to introduce this to faculty as well. And you've raised some really great points there that we'll dive into the Q&A as well. So I'll hand over to Sofie now for your experience with the reporting phase, and then we'll dive into this all together with the Q&A, because I can see that they're flying in and we want to make sure everyone has their as many questions answered as possible. So Sofie, over to you.
Okay, so the key learnings and wins I would like to share. The overall win is it has unique content, so it could reinforce predefined content. It could be complementary as an extra help to student catch up. The wins with the VR application is the rich feedback, and it's feasible in collaboration with other services. The teacher's learning curve will make it even easier in the future. The support service adapted the reservation system, so that's due to this case. So they added an option: first use, yes, no; support needed, yes, no. So that's a good one. I mean, the awareness is growing within the college for using VR, and to convince teachers, you have to offer help. That's simple as that. The win with the desktop laptop application is that it's approachable in use. It's quickly implemented. Students can do it at home. We can apply an extra class discussion to provide additional feedback. So I think you can cover that. Quick conclusion there, that students were attracted by the content and the technological application. Teachers found the learning environment enriched. So that was really good feedback from teachers. And about the next steps, I can say we invested as well in Bodyswaps. We had some budget remaining of the project, and we invested it in that. And now we want to involve as many colleagues as possible in the coming year and let them work with Bodyswaps. Let them know Bodyswaps Go Analytics. That's the admin platform to monitor the learning curve of the students. So we will doing that by encouraging colleagues to talk about it in a formal and an informal way, so to enforce the ripple effect there. We will bring it on board meetings, and also we will train teachers to work with Bodyswaps Go Analytics to have the best learning effect. Otherwise it could be just like a little pinch, and you have to implement it deeply.
Fantastic. And for anyone that's not familiar with Bodyswaps Go, as mentioned, it's an admin platform that you'd have access to manage your users, but most importantly, potentially seeing their feedback from their learning journey throughout Bodyswaps. So within the reporting phase, this is probably one of the key tools that you'd leverage. You can see the confidence levels before they've taken a module and after. You can compare the differences across device types. You can really focus in on individual modules that you've tested, whether you've tested them in different ways, and you can create classes so that you can run different deployments, different pilots, and then compare the results across those different areas as well. So as you might have seen in the chat, you've got support from Elise, who's responding to many of your questions. So Elise is in customer success alongside me, and we're always happy to talk through your deployment, talk through your questions, as well as the team when you first come on board with us and the journey that you take to understand how this will work in your specific context as well. So we will move on to questions next, but Sofie made a really lovely comment about looking at the power of bottom up. So I'd love to kind of just go back to Sofie on that for you to elaborate a bit more for the audience.
Sure, would love to add it. Is that we believe in change management and acknowledge the power of bottom up. So like intrinsic motivation is way better for the long run. We see the teacher as a self-employed person, professional who wants to be informed. And that means that as like an advisor, you have to listen first and then use your knowledge to advise. And the advice has to meet better involvement and participation of their students, faster action of the students. And then you can use other stories, other experiences of peers, teachers. And then you can use the case of this pilot. So they have like the really intrinsic motivation to get in on board. And we see that they already are talking about it. So that's a really good sign. I think you just have to look at the beginning for engaged people who are not afraid to make mistakes, because those people will know that will do it. They will do it in the future even better. So the students can make safe mistakes in Bodyswaps, but the teachers as well. And just when you're looking for people who can start this, I think that's the perfect personality, the innovators, the people who want to try, who are like curious.
Fantastic. So that's who everyone should be looking out for to join them in their pilot programs at your various organisations, which leads lovely as a nice segue onto the Q&A section. So I'm going to start off with a question for Zoe that was posed around your B package. If you could provide just a little bit of more context on that.
Sure. So it is BE. It is the word B. So it's B independent, B tutorial, and B social. The B independent are modules that the learners do across their time with us each year, but each half term the topic or the theme changes, and what we try to do is that they independently complete one module a week around whatever the topic is. So we always start our year with kind of safeguarding and prevent, or e-safety, then we move into kind of study skills, then we move into employability, digital skills and preparing for work, and British values. So we align our Be Independent modules then with our skills promise. And so they're modules that they do independently with kind of no tutor support or tutor help. And then within the B tutorial is when they have that one-to-one with their course leader. That's where they'll be kind of setting their targets, having those discussions around whatever the topic is of that half term. And that's where hopefully then we'll get staff taking the learners to complete then some of the Bodyswaps packages as part of that, to open that discussion and to teach more. So they've got the independent online module where they're doing that kind of independent learning, and then they have that discussion then with their course leader, so then it's extended, and then hopefully the tutors then are making links to whatever their subject specialism is, just so that again we're using that platform to connect the dots. So hopefully that's answered. The Be Social is very much what it says. It's Be Social, so we have a walk and talk. It's kind of that community feel, and there's lots of different kind of club events, so it's kind of under that Be umbrella, if you like.
Fantastic, thank you, Zoe. So moving on to one of the questions we've had from the audience, which is from Jason. So looking at the software that you might have used to manage your devices. So do either of you use an MDM like ArborXR? If not, how did you manage your devices? So might start off with Sofie on that. Have you used any device management system for your VR headsets?
I have no idea, because I had a technical guy who did this for me.
Perfect. So the technical guy you need to get involved, that's the one that can lead the way on that side. And how about you, Zoe?
So our IT team, they got it all set up and ready to go on the individual devices, because we only obviously did the pilot with 5 at the time. But now that we've invested and we've got obviously 25 devices, and now we've got more licenses, so I believe we're going down the ArborXR route, following our staff development day and the advice that we've got from you guys. So I think we're going with that kind of learner management system. So, but again, that's the IT team.
I'd say the key learning of that is get yourself technical support or someone who can provide that view, and you can really focus on the delivery, the pedagogy, and have a kind of an expert in their field that can support you alongside that experience. So then moving on to another question. So this is from Mary Lee Carter. So when running scenarios, did you use the kiosk mode so that every learner goes through the induction? Now, if you're not familiar with that, or anyone that's joining, the kiosk mode is a way of tying a device to only playing a particular module, or there's ways that we can set your devices up so that every learner that then starts a module, whether it's their first time or if it's an anonymous user, it will show them the induction sequence, which essentially is the embodiment process, allows them to connect with movements within Bodyswaps, but also then connecting them with the avatar that they've chosen. So Sofie and Zoe, was that something that was played for every user at the beginning of their sequence? I can see Sofie Sofie nodding, so I'll start with you.
I have to say that we have the same group. Yeah? So we have 2 modules and it was the same group. So at first they did the kiosk mode, and in the second module they could like faster through it. So we use it at first, certainly.
Fantastic. And what about you, Zoe?
Yes, so we went through kind of the induction mode first with each set of learners that we had come through, just so that they could get used to obviously having an avatar. I don't think they would have ever seen anything like that. And obviously when looking down at the controllers, you can see your hands and things like that. It was just getting used to them. So it was really important for us to have that induction before throwing them straight in to now you're going to go and be interviewed. So I think it was really important to have that induction first of all.
Fantastic. And to anyone kind of viewing this, if you are a partner that doesn't know how to set that up, or if you're looking at joining and want to help us set that up, we absolutely would walk through that on the journey with you to make sure that you have the right setup for your users and the ways that they then start their journey, whether that's the casting experience or the introduction actually to Bodyswaps before they put the headset on, or from when they've got that headset ready to go. So many questions that have been posed have been answered. If they haven't been answered, we'll be sending over a recap to anyone that registered with questions being answered, maybe from our guests or from our knowledge. But just want to wrap up that section for now and say a huge thank you to Sofie and to Zoe for your participation, for your insights. It's been really valuable for us at Bodyswaps, but also for everyone here on this call. So thank you very much. We will be sharing links to your LinkedIn profiles if anyone wants to connect with you after this call. But if there's anything else you want to say to Sofie and Zoe, feel free to contact them and they'll be happy to hear from you. So I'm going to now switch mode and we're going to move on to the exclusive preview of our roadmap, our product roadmap. And I'm whooshing in Chris, our co-founder and CEO. And so I'll pass the baton, Chris, if you want to take it from here and share the exciting news on what's to come.
Yes, brilliant. Hi, Laura. Hi, everyone. I recognize a lot of names in the YouTube. Thanks a lot to Zoe and Sofie. One thing, I see all those familiar names, and it's very important that as educators you can rely on each other. So if you want us to be the hub of putting each other in touch, never hesitate to send us an email with the questions you have, even if it's not a question about Bodyswaps, but whether about getting in touch with someone who has done something in VR in general. We are very happy to help. Laura, if you could bring in my slides onto the screen, that would be wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
So before I talk about the roadmap, I wanted to share the results of a study that Thomas More University of Applied Sciences, that Sofie mentioned, has been conducted in parallel to the Meta grant. So there was 45 colleges and universities took part, near 500 learners, over 100 educators, and they all did at least one module in Bodyswaps. So I'm just going to tease a few results. There's a lot in there, and obviously you can download it if you want. There were two topics. The first one was what are the perceptions from educators in terms of the affordances, the new things that VR for soft skills brings. So from both educators and students. And looking at students first, the lowest hanging fruit, which is an important one, is engagement. And I think getting students to care and engage around their soft skills is interesting. And that's something that VR seems to bring in. And that's the students themselves saying, I am more engaged with soft skills now that I have that tool. The second aspect is psychological safety. Students typically can be scared to practice the communication skills in front of adults for fear of judgment. And I think the psychological safety that VR brings is definitely welcome. A third element is personalized learning. We know that when it comes to soft skills or any skill really, everyone starts at a different level. Everyone progresses at a different speed. Everyone has different needs. And so the personalized aspect of an asynchronous piece of software, as opposed to being in a classroom once with one educator talking to 30 plus students, is welcome. That helps really students relate the software to their own lives and their own needs. And finally, another aspect was self-efficacy. And so when you have 3/4 of students thinking that this will help them be confident in front of other people, self-efficacy is the superpower that transforms knowledge into action. And I think that's a very, very promising number. Now, let's look at educators. One element that was interesting is evaluation support. So a lot of educators would use VR and AI, and Bodyswaps in that case, as a source of data to get to know more about their students and support them. So that's essentially using technology as a teaching assistant, if you will, which was an interesting finding. On engagement and self-efficacy, you see the numbers here are very high, over 90%. So there's a really good alignment here between students and educators in terms of the potential of the technology to engage and actually transform behavior. And the last aspect for educators was opportunities to learn, and the idea that those technologies are going to offer more opportunities to learn, more accessible. And that's more opportunities as in an individual student can practice more times thanks to the asynchronous nature of the software and the multi-platform, but also the fact that this makes soft skills training accessible to people who might not be able to come on the campus and to have this in-person learning. So that's quite promising for the technology. The second element, and there's a lot in here that you will have heard from Zoe and Sofie, is what factors do contribute to the acceptance by students of educators of VR for soft skills? In other words, what's going to drive the adoption? How do we go from a VR champion and a pilot to something bigger? So looking at students, there's 4 factors that drive it. The first one is social influence. I want to do it because my mates are doing it and it's fun. And the learning here from the survey is try to deliver training in synchronous groups, at least to start with, create that social emulation, create a movement. Second biggest factor was performance expectancy. In other words, this will help me in my life right now, not in 5 years, not in 10 years. As a student, it's just too far away. In my life right now, to interact with peers, to interact with adults. And the learning here is during the onboarding phase, it's very important to speak to the student in terms of the with him, which is what's in it for me. You have to tell the students what they are going to get from it. The third element, unsurprisingly, is hedonic motivation, which is a mouthful for fun. The experience is enjoyable and engaging, and that seems important to students. And that means you can leverage VR to introduce a bigger topic. If you have a drop in engagement around a specific skill, VR can be a way to bring up the engagement level across the entire program. And then we have facilitating condition, which means that as a learner, I'm at ease using the software and the hardware. So you need your trained facilitator to cover that during the onboarding. Now, looking at the educators, the first one by far, in terms of the relative importance of the factor, is performance expectancy as well. So the fact that it truly benefits the students. If you are going to get more educators than the VR champions to adopt the technology, it's about showing results. And so leveraging the data from the software and communicating about it outside of the VR lab is very important. Second one is the personal innovativeness. What this means is the more excited an educator is with innovation and technology in general, the more likely they are to adopt VR, which makes complete sense. But what this means as you're looking to deploy is to adopt a pebble in the pond strategy, which means start enrolling the educators that are motivated and they will build a community around them. Don't try to have a blitzkrieg rollout. The third lesson is around social influence at an organization level, which means what will drive adoption is if the educators feel supported by the organization. And that means the senior leadership proactively communicating internally and externally about the long-term vision and the pedagogical fit. In other words, this is not a PR stunt. This is not an innovation play. We're doing this for the long run, for the students. And that communication is very important. And the last one, of course, is also the facilitating condition. Educators are not technical facilitators. Some of them are because they love the technology. I know Rob Therio, for example, is on the chat here, but that's not the majority. And so you need to create that group which is composed of the educator, the technological facilitator, and the senior leadership for support. So that was a very, very quick rundown of that report. There's a lot more fascinating findings in here. So please contact us if you wanna read it. Now, in the last 2 minutes, what else is happening? Firstly, let's look at content. So we have a new module with the Royal Society of Medicine called Navigating Angry Conversations. That's out now as of 2 weeks ago. So it's on the library. You can have access to it. And then we have more stuff coming for the rest of the year. So we're going to update our public speaking and presentation skills with some ChatGPT integration. More on that in a minute. We have 3 modules on negotiation skills coming at the end of the summer. Then after that, we partnered with West Herts College, and we've created a number of modules on professional communication and growth mindset. That's really for further education students. And finally, again, with West Herts College and with the NHS, we have a module on the healthcare side of things around communicating in a person-centered way. Also more to come, but I cannot talk about it. So all of this is going to be on the library for everyone to try. Finally, the big two-letter word, AI. It's been on everyone's lips for 6 months. We've been working quite hard in the background, not rushing on this, because we wanted to build the necessary infrastructure to make generative AI work for the greater good. And that means 3 things. Everything we bring in terms of Gen AI into Bodyswaps has to improve engagement, or 4 things: improve engagement from the learners, improve learning performance. It has to not carry any biases, and we know the issues with AI in terms of gender biases or race biases, for example. And finally, it has to protect the psychological safety of the learner. And so we are rolling out the very first of our Gen AI powered features in the job interview simulator, where you will get AI generated feedback on your answer and a model answer for you. So we're rolling that out, and if you're already a customer of Bodyswaps, just reach out and we would be happy to enroll you in the beta partnership. And last but not least, I would like to welcome Tierney to make one last announcement.
Hi everyone, thank you Chris. Yes, I'm really excited that as part of this event we are going to be offering attendees the chance to run their own 8-week pilot. So this is a chance to participate in our ongoing research around running pilots, and will include complimentary access to our full library with unlimited users and deployment support from the Bodyswaps team. So if you've been inspired by today, this is a really good opportunity to run your own pilot and showcase Bodyswaps within your institution. So you can scan that QR code on the screen or use the URL. And I think at the end we'll also pop in my meeting link for anyone that's just super keen to chat and has some questions. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and I'll welcome everyone else back onto the webinar now.
I will leave the screen up a little bit longer just in case anyone's there trying to get their phone and scan the QR code, but we will also pop that in the comments for you so that you can access that in your own time. So I just want to say a huge thank you for everyone that joined, everyone that participated. It's been brilliant to see the questions, and as Chris said, familiar names, faces. It's always wonderful to have everyone to come together and to support each other in every journey, every question, everything that they have experience of. It's always so wonderful to see how willing and engaged you are, and happy to share that with others. So we will be adding into the comments the guide to the pilot program, or if you don't have that available now, it will be sent over as an email after. But what I will do just to kind of wrap up the call is reshare my screen, and we'll just look at that final stage of the poll. If you do still have it up on your phones, on your laptops, whichever devices you're on, then please do now tell us your confidence levels on running a pilot. Someone has already gone ahead and clicked that 5, they're ready to go. But if you are still available or with your device, go to Menti, enter the code 73636941 and tell us about your confidence levels now. And then if there's any further questions, whether the guide can answer that, we can answer that ourselves, or you can support each other with the answers, then we're very happy to facilitate that. So we'll be dropping some links into the chat for you all, including the meeting link for Tierney, the Zero to Hero guide that we mentioned, and also the LinkedIn links for Zoe and Sofie for you to connect post this call. But thank you as always for your engagement, your participation, and wherever you joined this, whether it's live or after, I hope you had a good chance to learn more, and look forward to connecting with you from here. So looking like fairly strong results, pretty happy to see that. I hope you all found this a very good, useful time, and look forward to connecting with you on an individual level from here. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.